Hello and welcome to On Point. I'm Alan Cardoza. Have you gotten your flu shot this year? If you haven't, you're not alone. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says only about 45% of children and adults had gotten their vaccines. That's slightly up from last year. It hasn't been proven yet, but it's possible the spike in vaccinations comes from fear. After last year's severe flu season killed about 80,000 people. That's more than from traffic collisions, gun violence, or opioid overdoses. A vaccine is made up of a small number of weak or dead germs that can cause diseases. The goal is to prepare your body to fight diseases faster and more effectively. The CDC changes the flu vaccine every year because the circulating flu strains are in constant flux. Public health agencies make educated guesses as to what mutations and strains are expected. This is one reason why people are hesitant about getting the vaccine.
I don't get the flu shot though, only because I've never got the flu, or I've never really been known to get sick like that, so.
The National Foundation for Infectious Diseases reports less than 50% of college students typically get their vaccine. Some worry the vaccine will make them sick or that there are side effects. Some say they are already healthy, while others say they won't get the flu anyway. A lot of students get their information from family or friends, or the internet, rather than a healthcare professional.
I don't think it would have made a difference. I think that was their personal preference, just due to how they were being advised medically. And a lot of times, especially then, there's a lot of people that are just unaware of a lot of the side effects that have stemmed from vaccinations, unfortunately. And because I've made myself aware of a lot of those side effects, I'm not an expert, but it's something that I kind of shy away from.
Valley Urgent Care Physician's Assistant Vanessa Guzman encourages patients to get the flu shot and to get educated.
Here in urgent care, we really don't see very many people coming in for flu shots or vaccines. I'd say this flu season, we've only seen about 20 patients come in and get a flu shot this year. Some of the benefits of getting the vaccine for the flu as a child or an older adult is it prevents us from any kind of complications from the flu, not necessarily just preventing the flu. People don't know that the flu can actually cause pneumonia and other secondary infections. And if you're a child, your immune system isn't completely built up yet. So it's really important to give yourself that boost as a child and as an older adult. I think people are afraid of vaccines just because they don't know, and they're scared and they're not equipped with the facts. Scientific literature is really hard to read, but opinions and blogs are easy to read. And a lot of times those are geared more towards the patients that are scared and fearful and looking for easy information. It's just patients don't know. And that's why I recommend that they come to an urgent care or talk to their doctor, just so that we can give them the actual facts versus word of mouth that may not be correct.
On Point's Monica Campos has more on the story.
Thank you, Alan. I want to welcome my guest today. Today joining me is Mercedes Gallup, who is the Nursing and Clinical Unit Supervisor at CSUN's Clot Center, and Simrat Kalsi, who is an Associate Scientist at Medtronic Inc. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having us.
All right, well, let's get to it. There's a lot to cover. So this question's for both of you. How exactly does the flu vaccine work? Why is there such a misunderstanding regarding this vaccine? Do you want to start off?
You're the scientist.
Yeah.
You want to take that one?
So, you do take a virus, for example, but it is once it's inserted into your body, via an injection, it's actually dead before it goes in, so it has no chance of infecting you, right? But your body, your white blood cells specifically, treat it as an infection. Something is coming to the body, right? It attacks it, remembers what it is, it's easy to kill it off, and then if it ever happens again, it can defend off of it, and I'm sure you can, add on to that.
Yes, when you get a flu vaccine, there's a specific body response. A lot of people are worried about flu vaccines giving them the flu, but it's not actually a live vaccine. It's attenuated, which means it's killed during the process of when they grow it and process it. And so the body's ability to recognize the invader is what makes the flu vaccine so valuable in its efficacy. If the vaccine is a good match for the circulating viruses that are kind of circulating throughout the country.
Yeah, and they give you 4 types of variations,
yeah.
sometimes 3, sometimes 4 variations, but they're trying to predict what it can be, but there is the probability that they might not get the actual correct variety of the flu.
Yeah, it's about I'd say 10 to about an 80% variance. This year they're expecting it to be, or it's about 60%. And throughout the flu season, they may adjust the flu vaccine to better match during the season as they can kind of nail it down. So this year it's about 60% effective.
All right, and Mercedes, why do you think some families are so reluctant to getting their children vaccinated?
Well, there's a lot of misconception. There was a debunked articles in the Lancet, which is a research organization and publication, and it has since been retracted that it actually had misinformation and it was a bad study design and it was inaccurate. And people losing faith in their public health research or people who they feel confident in can really damage everybody's trust in where they get their information. And that one false study had serious implications on how people viewed immunizations and whether or not they were safe.
Do you believe that maybe also part of it became socially cultivated too, peer pressure?
Yeah, and when you have celebrities getting on the bandwagon that are not scientists, people gravitate to information, and the average layperson may not know how to interpret websites for accurate information, or maybe hearing things from inaccurate places and not getting the best information. So that can kind of build on itself. So it's really important that you search out really good, sound websites to get your information, like the CDC, WHO, where there's reputable and solid information.
Yeah, and if I could add on to that, and it's also the perpetuation of social media with the fake news as of recent.
That's a real problem.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, you read it. So no one really digs into what they read. They just see the headline. Vaccines cause autism. I think that was one of the larger ones, right? And that's with these debunked articles and so forth. You really got to dig deep as a person who's on social media on whichever platform it is, right? Not naming any specific ones, but some of these have a reach of to over 1 billion people, right? So that can get to that 1 billion people, and that just perpetuates, not just the celebrities, but I'm reading at home, hey, this means that, so I believe it without reading into it.
Right.
Yeah.
And Simrat, I have a question for you. Is getting the flu shot especially important for those who are at a greater risk of developing health problems, such as babies, seniors, or those undergoing pregnancy?
So I can't remember off the top of my head, but there is some restrictions, the age restrictions if you're too young or too old.
Actually, for flu vaccine specifically, everybody over the age of 6 months is recommended to get the flu shot. So it's particularly important for actually those that are immunocompromised or pregnant. And there are certain populations or people in the population that really can't get vaccines. And the whole idea of public health around a vaccine is that all of us together help everyone else who really can't get the vaccine. And so we try and do it for other people, not just for us.
Right. So I did take the vaccine this past season. Mm-hmm. So imagine if someone in this room did not get it. Now I'm not being symptomatic, not sneezing on someone, potentially getting them sick.
Right. So if seniors have a weaker immune system, should they still be getting vaccinated as well?
Absolutely. Those over 65, there's actually a special higher dose vaccine that actually has 4 times the flu vaccine than the regular dose, in order to better stimulate the immune system to help fight off disease.
Okay. Maybe this is a question for you, Mercedes.
Okay.
Do you believe this is, do you believe there is a major difference between getting your flu shot at a drugstore or rather than a doctor's office?
No, wherever you can get it, it's valuable and you should get it. It doesn't matter if it's a Walgreens, a Rite Aid, CVS, Costco, as long as, there are standards for all places on how vaccines are stored, managed, administered. So it really doesn't matter where you get it. It's more important that you do get it, and you get it every year. That's really important.
Yeah, thank you. And Simrat, for you,
Yes.
I guess I was asking because the doctor and drugstore, I was just wondering do some people get screened prior to, for their allergic history? I know that there are some ingredients in the flu shot that some people are allergic to, and some people may not know that they're allergic to these ingredients, so what happens then?
So there was a previous, chemical, and then correct me if I'm wrong.
Thimerosal.
Yeah, and I think arsenic way back when, right? Which bad for your body. That has been removed, the arsenic, as of recent. And then in terms of potential infections and stuff, there's always a likelihood. But the way these are again handled, stored, delivered, you do get a little wiped down before it goes down with either alcohol or something before it's delivered to minimize the infection. These needles come in sterile bags, right? They have a long history of sterilization, they had radiation or some sort of other delivery mechanism to reduce any sort of infection from said needle. And this, stays true for when you're getting, blood drawn or anything that's invasive of that sense. These, even bandages to that matter, to reduce infection.
I can speak to that too. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Just in terms of there are certain people that they're allergic to certain ingredients.
Yeah, and again, there's the thimerosal that people used to be, and that's in multi-dose vials. Most vaccines are mostly single-dose vials, so they're thimerosal free. They don't contain the preservative anymore. So a lot of people were worried about a mercury-containing ingredient that might cause health problems or the autism. So again, that stems back to original misinformation through the bad research study that was done. And they're so safe now as far as what their ingredients are, because they are single-use. They don't have the preservative in them. The only thing that most people are, if they have a severe anaphylactic reaction to eggs, the flu vaccine is actually made in eggs. So if you have a severe anaphylactic reaction, not like you don't like scrambled eggs or something, but a severe anaphylactic, there are actually flu vaccine that you can get that is egg-free. So that's really the only, and sometimes people just have a reaction, and those would be the people that maybe the next year wouldn't get the flu vaccine or wouldn't get it thereafter, and that's why we get it for them.
Okay. Does the Clot Center offer anything for CSUN students?
We do have flu vaccine in our clinic, and it is available. We don't have it free on campus here. We did provide, the LA Department of Public Health came in November and did a free flu shot clinic for us during the farmers market. And we were able to provide about 175 vaccine doses to staff, faculty in the community and students. We do have, a lot of students with financial difficulties and stuff here. So even a $15 flu shot vaccine is sometimes a tough sell to a student who's struggling to be able to buy food or books or school supplies. So we do actually have a very low vaccination rate on campus, which is concerning because we try to get as many people vaccinated to help everybody stay well. So it is a bit of a challenge here on campus.
But if I get down to that, the previous place that I worked at, I worked at a hospital. At the hospital, they provided the flu vaccinations for free, right? So again, it helped the people around us not get sick, because imagine at a hospital, there's thousands of people coming, throughout the week. And in my current job, it's also the same scenario with 2,000 people working in the facility. We also are offered a free vaccination as well. So There are other ways, if you work for a corporation, a company, a job, and you get insurance through work, you have a higher likelihood of getting it for free because they do want to prevent the flu from happening, an outbreak of some sort.
Yeah, and there's lots of places like Costco, Walgreens, Rite Aid, where if you do have insurance, you can just walk in and provide your card and they will give it to you for free. So, well, free to you, maybe not the insurance, but
Right.
yeah.
So I know a common remark, I'm sure you guys have heard it, that some people believe that the shot is what actually got them sick.
Oh, can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Please, let me know.
And that is a belief system that people do have. And it's interesting because it is not a live vaccine. You're not getting a live dose. It's really impossible to get the flu from the flu vaccine. But remember, the flu vaccine only covers generally about 4 viruses. There are hundreds of flu viruses. So, if you get a flu virus that isn't covered in the flu vaccine, you're not getting that protection. Sometimes there's some cross coverage, but a lot of times, it's just not a good match. So you may still get the flu. You may still it's about 97% effective if it's a good match. And so there's still that 3% that you still might get the flu, but you might have less complications and you might not spread it to other people as easily. A lot of times when you get a flu vaccine, you're going into a health clinic where there's lots of germs. And remember, you can kind of not have symptoms before you get your flu shot. So if you're getting your flu shot, you may have already been exposed before you actually got the shot and then came down with the flu after the shot. And then, oh, well, it must be the shot. It takes about 2 weeks for immunity to build up in your system. So there's that vulnerability window in between that 2 weeks of when it takes effect in your body. So if you get the flu in that 2 weeks, you're going to think it's the flu shot and not just exposure that you happen to come into contact anyway. So that's why they recommend that you get the flu shot before flu starts circulating at the very beginning of the season, like October, because that way your body is primed and ready before the season, and you're not getting it like right now when flu is actually increasing in LA County. If you're getting it now, you have the opportunity to already be exposed.
Okay. Would you like to add to that?
No, that was great. That was great. Yeah.
That's my favorite one.
Is there some side effects that the flu shot gives? Is there any severe risks that people may face, or?
For all the millions and millions and millions of doses of flu shots that are given around the world, the side effects are very minimal. Sometimes they're more like localized, like your arm's just sore. I won't say that there isn't ever an adverse reaction to the flu shot. Some people do have reactions, but it's such a small percentage of the population that has a problem. It is really considered very safe.
Okay.
Just for the greater good, right? Just for a little local, little bump. Yeah.
Little bumpy bump.
Little bumpy bump. Let's call it that.
All right, Simrat, this question's for you.
Sure.
How does the CDC, Center of Disease and Control Prevention, present their data on how effective the vaccine truly is? So, why does it change every year? How does the CDC prepare for that?
So it's like, what she was talking about earlier, we were talking about earlier, these are viruses, right? They evolve pretty rapidly, right? When you don't see this evolution in terms of people, animals, etc. But in bacteria especially, you see things evolve over time. They gain resistances. They are exposed to this. Certain ones die off, and certain ones, continue on, right? And if certain ones die off, we might have got the vaccinations for the ones that are not more present in the air, let's just say. And then in terms of the likelihood this one became resistant to X, Y, Z, now we got that one, we might get sick, right? So again, that variability of, getting sick and not getting sick, did I get the right vaccination or not, varies, right, from year to year.
Okay. I see.
Yeah, they spend a lot of time kind of trying to figure out what the anticipated virus is, and sometimes they nail it and sometimes they don't really. And even if they get the right viruses are really smart. Mm-hmm. And they call it shift, where they kind of like change a little bit and kind of outsmart vaccines sometimes, especially with the flu. It's kind of ever evolving.
It's like, you know, on a business side, you can kind of like, you can't predict the market even, right? If the market's going one way or the other, there might be a crash, there might be an up. You won't know, but you can do your best to predict it, right? So it's in that sort of perspective, you can kind of see it the same way. You won't know for sure, right? But you can kind of project.
Okay. Is there a thing such as getting over vaccinated or getting too many vaccinations? There's some people that I was reading that go in for the shot multiple times.
That's really not recommended. It's not really contraindicated to, you know, there isn't really a need to get more than one a season. Okay. In 2009, when we had the H1N1 swine flu epidemic, you know, the flu shot didn't cover it, and a lot of, especially college students, we had a big problem here on campus in 2009. And so they developed a vaccine specifically for that strain and then administered did flu vaccine clinics here on campus to help kind of quell the H1N1 that was here. But you really wouldn't want to get more. It's not really contraindicated if you get a second one, but more is not better in the case of flu vaccine.
Right. All right, Simrat, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So starting in January 2019, there has been reported 127 individual cases of measles confirmed in 10 different states, and that's only been in the past 2 months. Do you believe it's because these individuals haven't been vaccinated?
100%.
100%.
100%.
100%.
Wow.
Like without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
Do you think it's a concern for CSUN students?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. The thing is that the transmissibility of measles is so virulent. One person can infect 12 to 18 people. And it's an aerosol transmitted disease, which means it can linger in the air. We can have somebody walk in here with measles, and 90% of the room will become infected. And part of it is because you can come into the room and then not have any symptoms because you're kind of infectious 4 days before a rash and 4 days after a rash. So those 4 days you might seem well, come into the room, hang out, breathe, and you're transmitting. You walk out of the room, it stays in the air for 2 hours after somebody leaves.
Right.
And babies can't get vaccinated for measles until they're over a year old. So there's a whole year where they're vulnerable and can't get vaccinated. So that's why it's so important for people to become vaccinated. And with the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, only, you know, it's only a 90% take, so there's 10% where you can be fully immunized and still get disease. But it's the virility of that particular disease that is just very aggressive and just, it's unpredictable, and
Right.
it's pretty much, yeah, it's slam dunk.
Right. And what do you two think about those horror stories that we've heard or seen online that, you know, people have been paralyzed after the flu shot or?
Again, it's kind of a belief system, because, you know, there's a certain number of the population that will get these diseases whether or not they get the vaccine. You know, showing cause and effect is a really difficult thing to do. Just because you got the vaccine doesn't really mean that that caused your disease. There's a certain prevalence in both populations that would have gotten it anyway. But if you happen to have gotten a vaccine and then came down with the disease, there's a belief system that it could be caused from that. And you can't, that's a really difficult belief system to break.
Right. So how do you think would be a great way to end the skepticism society has breached regarding the vaccine? Like, what are some ways that we can teach, you know?
Really just education, and teach people how to really understand social media posts and be able to review, become web literate, and be able to read research and be able to make informed decisions. As a public health researcher myself, it's a learned practice to be able to decipher really good health information. And I can't say enough, even if you don't believe in getting a vaccine, you know, there's other things that you can do. You know, stay home when you're sick, you know, wash your hands. You know, washing your hands can decrease the illnesses by like 50%.
The simple things.
The simple things, you know, social distancing, where you, if you're sick, you know, stay 6 feet away, you know, or, you know, if they're sick, you stay 6 feet away. You know, there are things that we can all do that even if you don't believe in vaccines, that helps the whole population. It's really a team effort, and it's a selfish one to not vaccinate. You know, because we really need to protect the people who can't vaccinate. It's really important.
Right. It just, again, just best practices, keep practicing them. Even if up to sneeze, not here. Remember, into the inside of the elbow. And just, you know, I personally feel there should be more, not just on, you know, social media, you know, the proper journal articles should be presented more so on the news by the government, you know, trusted parties, right? The school, you know, educators and stuff, because, you know, all of us have to go through primary school, et cetera, the hospitals, wherever you go. And, you know, watching this, obviously, right, you know, hopefully this gets enough traction, that'll be great. You know, for students, parents, all alike to, you know, just really understand the necessity of good hygiene, good health, and getting a vaccination.
And a lot of times,
Yeah,
and a lot of times it's just, you know, cold and flu viruses live on surfaces, so just cleaning. But we touch our eyes, nose, and mouth like 2,000 to 3,000 times a day. So if you can imagine how that can impact and, you know, transmit to yourself just by doing that. So there's, you know, flu shot is still the #1 way to prevent flu worldwide.
Thank you.
And just got to remember that you can't absolutely not get sick, right? There's going to be something that happens, right? Someone might, you know, when you sneeze, you might get something. If I touch something that hasn't been washed in a while, you know, things do gather up. It's not 100%. If you get a cut, there's always that chance. It's not absolute, but you can do your best to minimize and mitigate the chance of infections from not just, you know, the flu, but other things as well.
So thank you so much for coming today, and that's all we have time for today.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Thank you for watching On Point. You can follow us on social media at CSUN On Point. You can hear us on KCSN 88.5 FM on Sunday mornings at 5:30. You can watch us on Santa Clarita Valley Television on Sunday evenings at 5:30 and on LA 36 on Thursday nights at 8:30. For all of us here at On Point, I'm Alan Cardoza.